Welcome to Valuable Coaching with your hosts, Kevin Pratt and Miles Holland. Today, we have our guest coach, Ali McCullough.
Hello and welcome to Valuable Coaching. We have the pleasure of talking to Coach Ali McCullough today, and Miles is going to give her bio. Miles?
All right, thanks, Kevin. We have Ali, a daughter to Janice and Gary Daly, who grew up in Grass Valley, California, went to Nevada Union High School, where she was just recently inducted to the Minor Hall of Fame. She played her club volleyball for Nevada County Volleyball Club, City Beach, and Gold Cal Juniors. After she went to Nevada Union and went on to college, she played at Long Beach State for a year, where she was Freshman of the Year. She then transferred to UCLA, where she majored in sociology and played 3 seasons for the Bruins there. She then went on and played professionally indoor in Puerto Rico, and then 1 season in Spain. And then she joined the AVP Tour in 2012 and the USA FIVB Tour in 2013. During that time, she met her husband, Kevin McCullough, and she continued playing until 2018. She then had her daughter, Scout Sequoia, who's now 3 years old, and she's currently the head coach at UC Davis for their beach program. So it's a pleasure to welcome Ali to the show tonight.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
So, Coach Ali, the first question we always ask all our coaches is, when did you kind of get involved in volleyball? How old were you, and how did you get your niche?
Oh, I should let Miles answer that. He knows that question when I started.
Well, we know you're an awesome baseball player, and then you found something else. So.
Yeah, I think volleyball was my last sport I got into. I played, I was a baseball player, swimmer, basketball, did track. I even did flag football, I think, when I was like in 6th grade. But I got into volleyball, and I was really good at it when I was young. I was the tallest kid on the court and really strong. I had a great arm because of baseball and all the other sports I played. But I really loved it. I liked the team aspect of it. And I just kept going from there with it. I continued to play basketball when I got to high school. But I was probably around 12, I think, back to like 12 was like my first year, 6th grade, I want to say. In volleyball. And then competitively, we didn't start like Nevada County until I was maybe 14. And then from then it was club volleyball and on to college.
Yeah, that's awesome. One thing that we've been trying to ask people too, who have played multiple sports like that, is that something that you would encourage other athletes to do? I know so many athletes now like to specialize in one thing, and really we see injuries and other things happen when people are really specializing in one thing. We had other coaches talk about the fact that they love when players play basketball. They know they're going to be in great condition for volleyball. Kind of what's your philosophy surrounding that when you're looking at athletes?
I love hearing when athletes are multi-sport athletes. It's really hard to do because club volleyball has become such a long season now. Whether even beach is, becoming longer and longer, but I really love seeing athletes that are versatile. Especially if they're taller players, if they've played other sports, like even soccer, basketball, they're just able to move better on the court, and they don't sustain injuries as quickly. And a lot of them too, because I coached youth for so long. I mean, I saw girls get injured at 12, 14 because they started when they're like 9 and they've only played one sport, and their shoulders are hurting, their knees are hurting. So I really love seeing athletes that play other sports. I also think it kind of gives them a mental edge too, because they tend to see a lot more than just the volleyball game. They kind of look outside the box when they're playing.
So, Coach, when did you realize that you wanted to coach after this great professional and collegiate career?
That's a good question, because I've been coaching, as you know, since I was in like college. Started coaching, I want to say I coached at Sunshine when I was, I think, sophomore, junior in college. and I coached club volleyball pretty much throughout my whole professional career too. But I really, I loved playing, and I wanted, for me, coaching for a long, long time was always just to kind of pay the bills and to be able to continue playing professionally on the tour. And when I decided to have a family, and that was in 2017, she was born, I had every intention of going back to playing professionally. I thought I would bounce back a lot better than I did, but I ended up bringing up a back injury that I actually didn't know I had. It was a spondylolisthesis and a pars defect that happened apparently when I was really young, like back when I was in high school. And during pregnancy, it actually expanded and ended up moving my spine around down there, and I had to get a fusion after 2 years. But I didn't know. I actually stopped playing because my back was hurting so bad, and I decided, you know what, it's time to go into something else that I love doing. And the other thing that I loved was coaching. I love mentoring, younger kids, because I've been through so much. I've been through the club system. I've been through the college system, the recruiting system. I've played at a really, really high level. I've trained at a high level. And so I really understood what it takes to communicate also to the youth athletes, kind of helping them on their path. And so I loved doing that. And that was kind of an easy transition at that point to actually taking it full speed and jumping kind of headfirst into the college world.
And it's cool that you're kind of our first guest that really has this really wide range of playing in college. Most of our coaches so far play in college, pretty much just move on and have become coaches. What did all that time, having that high level training, playing professionally, what kind of edge do you think that gives you as a coach, kind of knowing what even the next level is, when for most athletes, college is kind of the max level for, especially for volleyball?
Yeah, I think that, there's kind of two pieces to that, because I have student athletes that, they really have no desire to play professionally afterwards. And, they love playing and they want to be as good as they can possibly be in college, but they've got plans after to graduate, and some of them want to become vets and doctors, and, they have aspirations to be amazing things, which is incredible. And then I have others that they want to go play professionally, and that's a passion of theirs. And I feel like for me, I really kind of understand both worlds, and I can help those that are transitioning into trying to play professionally, because in the beach world, it's a lot harder than it is in the indoor world, at least for a lot of players, because you've got to sometimes know people to be able to get into a group, to start practicing at a high level, to get a partner at a high level, and how to train, and what tournaments to play in, and if you're trying to play FIVB, how do you get started there? And then also in the actual transition into the real world, as far as the working world, in beach volleyball, I guess is not as much a working world right now. Hope nobody on the Pro Tour gets mad at me for saying that, but I think it's still very hard to make a living playing. So the ones that are, transitioning to pro careers, I feel, not pro careers, but their actual, jobs, I feel like I can also help them there, because even though mine was later in my life, I still have a lot of connections from people that I've played with in the past, and being able to point them in the right direction. Our UC Davis also does a phenomenal job of helping our graduates launch anyway, so it's pretty cool.
That's awesome. I mean, you've said the word mentoring so many times, and I can assure you, you're probably a great mentor to these student athletes that you coach. But you've played for a lot of great coaches. Who were some of the ones that helped mentor you and shaped your coaching philosophy?
Oh gosh, I've had quite a few different angles from that, because coming from Long Beach State, which I really, really like, Brian was great, because he was so focused on the technical side, which prior to coming into college volleyball, I was not very technical. I was just an athlete. And I didn't have like extreme technical training. In fact, I look back at some of my old high school videos and I was like, oh man, I was lazy. But Brian really taught me what it was like to work and to really train that technical side. So I really appreciated that. And I always brought that into my coaching. And then when I got to UCLA, Andy was, a kind of a different spectrum. He was still very technical, but he was more about the whole entire person and what, your values as an individual are and what you want to aspire to be. And he was an extremely supportive coach on and off the court. So I got a lot of my cultural values from UCLA. I tell this story a lot to all my players. I really hate that I ever did this, but my first couple practices, I think I was 45 minutes late to my very first practice at UCLA. And there's a rule that if you are every minute you're late, you have to run a Drake. And yeah, which was brutal. I had 45 in my first year. We ended up going to the Final Four that year, and I was in the best shape of my life because I was running stairs the whole time. But Andy would always come out and he would run the track while I did my stairs. And then he would race me at the end of my session because I'd get 5 in every day or every other day. But he was always very supportive, whether you were in a bind or you were struggling or you were doing really good. He was just extremely supportive. And the whole family, the whole UCLA family was like that. And I think that was something that really was important when I transferred that into my coaching, that, we're coaches, but we're also supposed to be mentors and supportive and try and, really be good communicators with the student athletes to understand their position or what they're going through. Because that for me was something that I think made me a really, really good athlete. I was, that he showed me that he really cared. And I think that was amazing. And then going into my actual coaching, Ed Machado, who was a coach and owner at Wave, and I also played with his daughters at UCLA. When I started coaching, he kind of took me under his wing and started, he's like, you're a great player. He loved that I was technical, but he would always kind of teach me how to coach through asking me to teach him how to play. And he knew how to play and he knew how to coach, but he would always, how would you do this? How would you do this? And we always did those kind of scenarios coaching. So I learned through Ed Machado how to kind of put the coaching side of it into it, and how to run my team and that sort of thing. So I think that those 3 people were pretty influential in the coaching side.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's pretty cool that you're now coaching at the college level. You played at the college level, you played professionally. What was it like to kind of be coaching club volleyball and, kind of helping run a club and growing it? What went into that, and kind of what lessons did that give you going forward when it came to your coaching now?
Yeah, I think a lot of that was from Kevin. He did the grunt work with the club with Viper. I actually had the year that I was pregnant with Scout, I went through a paralegal school. So I worked, I was playing professionally. I was working part-time at a law office, and I was coaching club and helping run the beach club. And so a part of that kind of transition, into what if I don't play beach volleyball forever? Part of that was like, oh, okay, I could become a paralegal because I was really good at it, and I went to school. I got my paralegal certificate and everything. Everything I learned from paralegal school actually transferred really well into the program, like developing and organizing the back end, the compliance stuff, the paperwork, the setup of there's so much in college volleyball on the back end that is compliance and paperwork that I had no idea, but I'm so thankful that I had to do all that in the club and helping do all the back end side for the programming, that it's helped make that transition easy. As far as like the program, like running the actual like team, I think that came more so from my professional career and just knowing how to train, and how like you just had to figure out how to train 24 instead of just one or two players, which was probably
earlier you mentioned Long Beach State and UCLA. I think it's unique, and for our viewers, you know, we think a lot of viewers are potential college athletes. What would you talk about how the transfer process worked, and what would you advise future student athletes choosing a college? Maybe some of the things that you looked past. Would you mind sharing about that?
Yeah. So when I was in high school, I got recruited fairly early. You know, I think like my sophomore year, and I really wanted to go to Long Beach because of their reputation in volleyball. Like at the time when I was in high school, they were at the top. They were really, really good. And so that's where I wanted to go. And even though I got offers from other schools, I never did the research. I didn't take the time to go on visits. You know, I was a little bit naive in that. I didn't look at the educational side of it, the academic side. For my situation, the opportunities I had educationally. And when I got to Long Beach was a great school, but it was a commuter school. So it wasn't what I had expected for my vision of being in college, because I was very just narrow-minded. And I didn't listen to my parents. I didn't listen to anybody really, except for myself. And I think that the important thing is to just do the research and start with, what do you plan on doing after volleyball? Like what's, you know, because we all want to say, like, even if we do want to play professionally, there are things that can happen that maybe prevent us from being able to play even half of our college career, you know, injuries. Some things just happen, and you might not be playing volleyball or this whatever sport you're in. Is the place that you're at, is that where you want to be for 4 years? Is that where you want to live? Is that, you know, the people you want to be around? Is that the education? Is that what you want to, you know, what do you want to do after? And that's something I never even thought about. I was just going for volleyball. I'll just pick a major, you know. So, and it is hard to do at a young age, but I really like to encourage student athletes to take the time to do some research and find out what they're interested in. And it may change over time, but to have a game plan of, you know, life after volleyball. And then based on that, try and start narrowing down your schools, go on the visits. There are some phenomenal schools out there that people have no idea, because they just haven't heard of them, or, you know, they would, you know, they might be in a different state or whatnot. And I just encourage them to go and check out all the schools, you know, and check out what they have academically, and see if all the pieces fit. For me, one piece fit, and that was just volleyball. When I got to actually go out and play other schools when I was at Long Beach, I realized really quickly that I had not made the right decision for me. Even though Long Beach was a great school, and it was you know, I had a really good experience playing. I was, you know, freshman of the year, and we were, like, coaching staff was awesome. I didn't have a problem there. Like, it wasn't your, you know, typical transfer, I think, for some people, where they're just like, maybe the coaching staff they don't like, or the players or whatnot. I didn't make the right decision for me. So I encourage athletes to do the research and maybe listen to your parents every once in a while.
Yeah, that's good. And I know for me, I'm always trying to encourage kids to look at different avenues. I think too often we're always pushing kids to go to a 4-year university, and they maybe think that's the only option for them. And, you know, we've had an NAIA coach on, and we've listened to some club directors tell us about how they're encouraging kids to look at, you know, Division III schools, other avenues, and really find what's best. So I think that's a great story for people to for you to be able to go back and tell your younger self, like, yeah, maybe I should listen. Maybe I should take a little bit deeper look at this. Now that you are coaching at college, and if we kind of flip it around now and you're looking at players and you're trying to recruit them, what are some of the things that you really look for when you're going out and looking at players besides just the obvious, volleyball skills? What separates people, from just somebody who's good at playing volleyball to somebody who is going to come play, beach volleyball at UC Davis?
I think that the number one thing that I always look at first is just what kind of kid they are, the culture of the kid. And, if you get a chance, the culture of the family, as far as, are they a kid that is, when they're losing, are they a good sportsman with their teammate? If you've watched enough beach volleyball, it's easy to tell when someone's frustrated with a teammate, or they give up, or they lose hope or whatnot, they get mad. There's lots of kind of things that you can see when you're watching a game that can make or break for me recruiting a student athlete, because I will take the kid that is a 10 culturally over the, top athlete any day. At the end of the day, I want that player on my team to be able to fit into the whole team. And to be able to work together. And, I think that sometimes one or two players that don't have that ability, or they just, don't have that mindset or that work ethic, they can really bring a team down, or a pairs down for us, it's hard. So I really focus on that a lot, first and foremost. And then I look at, I wish that I could see more practices and games right now, but I like to watch practices if I can. I like, student athletes to send me practice video of their training so I can see like progression, and then also like game film progression. Right now in COVID, everything's about film. So, but when we get in person, I like to see that, what are they doing during timeouts? What are they doing for warm-ups? Are they that player that just jumps on the court and just starts playing, or do they have a routine for warm-ups? Are they focused in on what they're trying to do and kind of have set goals for each tournament? And that's kind of what I look for the most.
With that, how do you're the first beach coach we've had on here. You said, oh, it's really easy to see, and it kind of clicked with me like, well, it would be really easy to see when there's only two players out there, how somebody is acting. So
yeah,
that part is kind of probably a nice part of recruiting. But the other thing too, though, is beach volleyball is still really growing when it comes to recruiting. So do you strictly go out and only recruit beach volleyball athletes? Do you go look at indoor volleyball players as well? And what does that part of the recruiting look like for you?
I don't look at indoor players. I don't mind having indoor players at all, but that's kind of more of a like the way that we do it is Dan being the head coach at Davis for indoors. If there's a player that is interested in playing both and they want to be recruited to play both, that's when I would look at them, because typically when they're just trying to play indoors, it's really difficult to get them to buy in fully for both, because it's a lot. It's so much work, and we try to make that very, very clear to play beach and indoors in college. It's doable, but you've got to wear two hats, and you got to jump in from one season to the next. You have to be really diligent with your training and your downtime and your nutrition and everything so that you don't get injured. And then, you're having to juggle team chemistry on both ends, because sometimes, an indoor team can be a lot different than a beach team. Even though you're going to the same school, they're totally different teams. So I really only look at indoor players if they are like, I only want to play beach and indoors. Like they're not going to the school unless they get to play both. And that's when I'll take a look at them. But mostly I just recruit beach only players.
Yeah, coaches get hired for a number of reasons. They get hired sometimes because the program is, in a really bad situation. They have to clean it up, and it takes a few years. Sometimes a coach retires and you just take over and it's like, all right, don't mess this up. Your situation's unique because beach volleyball obviously is a relatively young sport at the NCAA level. And also it's not a very old sport at UC Davis. So can you kind of go into, elaborate that basically you can set a foundation, hopefully, that lasts for years and years and years, maybe even past you coach there. What are some of the things you're doing culturally that defines UC Davis beach volleyball that you hope to see happen for years to come?
The foundation is our culture. So when we first have our meetings, when we get the incoming freshmen, we have everybody in there, we all get together and we talk about expectations from the team and what we want to be known as. When UC Davis beach volleyball walks, out onto the sand, what do people know about us? And what I want people to know about us is we're a really tight-knit family that look like we enjoy every single day when we step on the sand, and we love competing, and that everybody works together and works at 100% to try and get what they want done. And that's in all aspects of the game, and life. So from our family relationships to our academics to our team, it's all about how much you're putting in as far as 100%. And it's not like something where, oh, she's not putting in 100% today, like go run lines. I think it's a cultural expectation when we first come in, and I try and recruit, like I said, going back to recruiting, I try and recruit those kids where I know coming in, we won't have a problem. They're going to start off just right off the bat because they're coming to us because that's what they want to be a part of. And it's really fun to see because our group is so awesome that, our girls will go sledding together and they'll go to the lake together, and they have, we're very open in communication. So they have no problem calling me and being like, hey, like coach, I have a question for you. Like there's just a very open line of communication and trust. And that's something that I think we've already started to develop and gotten some of the word out that that's what our team's about.
That's awesome. I mean, that's got to attract good kids. And I always think kids with good character end up making, better players in the long run. Definitely had teammates that were, a little tough to be around, even if they were a great volleyball player, and it just kind of brings everybody around them down. You can't play as well with that kind of energy. I don't know. Looking forward, obviously during this COVID time, it's been a little weird. You said you've had to rely on video a lot right now. What have you been doing with the players that are already there at Davis during this time to try and keep them engaged, make sure that they're keeping up with, with their exercise, their nutrition, those kind of things that are hard to kind of let slip during this time?
Yeah, it's been hard. It's been really, honestly, it's been tough. I think that, there's like the time this time especially has been nice because, like I said before, like we're finally able to come back and play. But right now we only have about like 12 girls on campus training. The rest decided to stay home and opt out because you can opt in and out right now as far as training goes. And the hard part is if players opt out and they're not doing their car hours, then everything they do is voluntary, and we can't really track or make them do anything. And that's kind of the hard part. But I think it goes back to just the trust of knowing that my girls are going to do everything they can to try and stay in as good a shape as they can with what they have available. Some of them have access to the beach to play. Some of them have access to some training. Others don't, though. Others are like, they don't have a gym they can go to, or they don't have a beach court they can go to because they don't live by the beach, and it's a little bit more difficult, but they're doing what they can with what they have to try and be ready to come back for a season. The girls that are here right now, they're doing a phenomenal job of training. we definitely came back, I think, a little rusty because we hadn't played since March. And, you know, for a lot of the players, they're really stoked to just be out and be able to like see each other more than anything, I think, than even the training part. They're just excited to see everybody. And they've been working really hard to get mostly their conditioning back in shape. Because usually typically during this time, we're really trying to build them up in their conditioning and their strength and speed and agility, and work on the slight technical stuff. But they're doing what they can. We try and do weekly to like bi-weekly meetings with the players that aren't here to kind of give them updates on what we're doing, so they're still in the loop and they know what's going on. But it's tough. You know, we just try and take it one day at a time. We're actually going back into our 8 hours right now, where we're going to be finishing up and getting ready to go to Thanksgiving, and I won't see them again until like January 4th. So it's a long break again.
Definitely. You know, Coach, everyone has their path. You know, kind of the traditional path is you're assistant for so long, bounce around all over the country. Then maybe you get your crack at it when you're 42, 44. Your path is, you know, you're relatively young for a head coach. And, you know, how are you doing things to make sure maybe the game doesn't outgrow you? And another term people say, sometimes it's lonely on top when you're the boss, you know, and you kind of went straight to being the boss. So my question to you is, how do you stay sharp, and how do you professionally still grow? And what are things you're exploring to make sure that you're on top of your game?
I call all the coaches that I know are really good and ask them to tell me what to do. No, but you know, the beach world, I don't know about the college world in, you know, indoors, but in beach, the college coaches are very, very supportive. You know, I immediately called Todd from Cal Poly, and I was like, hey, like, I'm brand new to this, you know, like, I can you help me? As far as, you know, like the structure of college beach volleyball, because this, you know, I think he was going into his 3rd or 4th year when I started. And, you know, that the benefit of being on the pro tour, and a lot of the pro players are actually college coaches now for beach, is that I had all those resources to just call friends and say, hey, you know, like, what did you encounter in your first year, like as head coach, or how, you know, what did you guys run into program wise, especially when just first starting a beach program, because, you know, it wasn't established. Going through and having to deal with scheduling, because we have to schedule all of our games. We don't have a set conference or anything like that. So I had to learn how to do all the scheduling, you know, learning how the pairs work, the tournaments work, all of that. So I just called people and asked, you know, for the beginning stages, I asked them for a lot of help, and they were more than happy to, you know, jump on a phone call and be like, hey, call me anytime, because the better all the beach programs get around, the better the NCAA beach volleyball gets. So if coaches are willing to be open and talk about that stuff, it's awesome. And they are, until you probably get good enough to beat their teams, and then they'll stop giving you information. But
you know, that's sound advice, Coach Allie, because it's interesting you mentioned that, because, you know, I have a few thoughts about that. Is beach volleyball right now, in a sense, reminds me of college men's volleyball. And the reason is it's still very small and growing. And I really hope it grows to be as big as women's indoors volleyball. I think that's great. Yeah. I think one thing about college men's indoors volleyball is they have to realize, like, we got to be each other's best friends, because these programs can be getting cut. You know, Pacific's been cut, yeah. LMU's been cut, Stanford is on the verge of getting cut. So these coaches actually are kind of in this fraternity, create this bond. I think on the women's side, I do think we can find a ton of coaches that are willing to help. There's no doubt. But I think there's so many, and there's so many conferences, and sometimes it's so competitive. And also on that side, it's a little maybe easier to lose a job, because there's just it's competitive, and an AD might let you go if you're not as good. Mm-hmm. It's fascinating to me, though, the name you mentioned, Todd Rogers. I mean, he's a product of UC Santa Barbara men's volleyball. He's been a men's volleyball assistant coach. And I guarantee you, if you called Coach Hall, when he was at Hawaii, I guarantee he would have talked to you.
Yeah, I got info from him too.
Yeah, I guarantee you that Mike would have talked to you.
Oh yeah.
And I think it's just cool for all young coaches. Don't be afraid to make that phone call and go for it. And I hope that you guys continue that on the beach. To hear that, that's like really cool. I think it's good when you're stronger, when everyone's better,
Yeah, and I think, ultimately we're here to make the student athletes better. And if I'm open to learning from, people that have been doing it longer and they, they've been successful at it and they know what they've been doing, and like it's a streamline to not go through all those errors on my own and mistakes and kind of jump over those. Everything from I think Todd gave me so much stuff to just be like, hey, when I did this and I learned real quick that you don't want to do that, and this is how you get things done a little bit quicker. And there's a lot of things that are so helpful and time saving, and it ends up really helping the student athletes as well. And I think it's awesome. The Big West Conference has been really, really great. That those coaches, Stein has also been awesome. I reached out to Stein, UCLA. So a lot of them have been so helpful. And I've already had coaches reach out to me, which has been nice, so I can give back, that are starting programs, building beach courts even. It's a little bit of a different world with the beach program because a lot of people are starting up brand new programs from scratch. And there's a lot of things that people don't know, even like administratively. When you start a beach program, there's a lot more that goes into it than just, throwing some sand out there and some nets and you can go play. There's a lot more to it. And if you don't ask, then you won't know.
Yeah, I think it's, that if you're all working together too, and there's more programs and they're in more areas, it's definitely going to grow at the younger levels too. Have you had clubs, you worked for Wave, they have a big beach program, you started one there with Viper Volleyball and with your husband. Are there clubs now reaching out to college coaches and trying to bring them in to run some clinics and stuff? Maybe not during this time right now, but maybe before COVID, or looking, in the future? That's something we've been talking to a couple of the club directors about, on the indoor side, them bringing in college coaches to do that. I think that would really help grow the sport. And I'm just wondering if that's starting to happen on the beach side as well.
Yeah, it started taking off quite a bit. They do a lot of showcases where they'll have, the day before they'll do college coaches trainings, and then the next day will be a tournament. So they kind of piggyback off of that. So the college coaches can come in and they can train kids. And then the next day they can also stay and recruit, so they're not wasting like a whole trip of going out to wherever they're going. Before COVID happened, there was multiple, I think, showcases happening. I know in everywhere from North Carolina to Texas to Southern California, where there was a lot of coaches starting to do camps for club teams.
We're all from California, and I definitely, growing up, I knew beach volleyball was happening. Do you think it's growing faster in some of the other areas around the country? Because you bring up North Carolina, Texas. I know I've talked to people in Tennessee who are trying to grow it, and it seems to be kind of taking off in all these different areas. And in some ways, it almost seems like California is, even though we have the resource of the beach right there, we've had lots of professional players come out of this state, not out of the beaches of Southern California and Santa Cruz. It seems to still maybe not be adding schools as fast, or be be on top all the time. So how do you think maybe California can improve, and how are those other areas growing something that really, maybe was not on the radar even 5 or 6 years ago when all this kind of first started?
Yeah, I think that, there's so many places now. And I think a lot of the club side of it comes down to space and cost for running the clubs. You go to Texas and you can probably run a club for a lot cheaper than you can in California, which means you can get more courts and more players and more coaches to train. And then, even Arizona and Colorado are becoming much bigger, especially right now because they can. California, I think everybody always wants to come to California, like, and play beach volleyball, like that Southern California more so specifically. Northern California is just starting to grow in beach volleyball, which is awesome to see. Like, there's clubs popping up in San Jose and San Francisco and even here. So that's really cool to see Northern California jump on board. But Southern California, I think the hardest thing is that it's so competitive, where clubs are like right next to each other, and they offer, there's a lot of elite coaches, a lot of professional athletes that are coaching clubs in Southern California. And so you kind of get a lot of, like, it gets very thin and spread out. And I think that if there was more unity in Southern California with the different tours and the different, there's so many different tours, from like CBVA to BB&E to the AVP to the P1440. There's so many different organizations that make it difficult for the student, like for the athletes, to decide what to do and focus on training. And it's always about, like, I need to go to this club because this is the best, trainer, or the best, this is where I'm going to get recruited, or it's just a social thing, right? Like, they're the best at social media even. Instead of just, maybe going to your area. Like, I know players who will drive all the way from San Diego to Manhattan Beach to be trained because that's where they think you have to be to play beach volleyball. I would love to see California just be more of a, maybe not as many clubs, but kind of grow the clubs better in a sense with what they have, like kind of unite all the phenomenal coaches and put them in one area instead of just spreading them out like down the beach. That's hard. I mean, it's great that there's so many of them and there's opportunities, but for I guess for recruiting, it makes it a little bit harder and challenging to keep track of all the different clubs and where people are going and the different tournaments they play in, and how to track which ones are, good tournaments as far as like the level goes, because the points are all over the place. I think that some of the other states do a little bit better job of the organization of their system.
Yeah, with running a new program that's getting going. And, one thing we like to ask our other coaches that are on, how do you do your work-life balance? I mean, you have a little one, you're, happily married, and, you're starting a brand new program basically. So what's the balance you do in your life, or what's your focus right now?
The balance is pretty easy. And I say that right now, but I think we're really, really lucky. And I know parents out there are probably going to hate me for this, but like we took Scout everywhere with us. Like, when she was brand new, I mean, Miles saw her at the beach when we were coaching, and, parents watched her on the sidelines. I still do that. Like, I'll bring her to practice with me, and she'll sit and just like, dig holes in the sand and play all by herself. Or, one of the girls that might be injured will play with her and stuff. And she's really good about being independent and coming to practice when we can't have her in daycare or in preschool. And so that's been really nice. Also, having family close by has been really helpful. So if I ever need my mom or my dad or my sister, or even Kevin's parents actually just recently moved about like an hour from us. So that having family close by is really, really nice too. And we had that support system when we were in San Diego, even running the club stuff. So I think I'm not, the balance isn't too hard for me right now. As far as, I think the hardest part for us is probably that Kevin is also my assistant coach, and he runs a club, like a beach club. And he's a phenomenal coach too, which is, if I can keep him as long as I can, I will. But I know that he has, aspirations for the youth side of it and everything he's growing that, and that's only going to take up more time. So balancing, you know, his kind of side and being an assistant coach and running a club, and then me also having to run the whole program. I think that's the only like thing that is sometimes hard. And it's really mainly only in the high season of like when summer comes around, which is nice for us because we're not really coaching during that time. We're just recruiting. So that's probably the only part that's tough to balance. Yeah. I'm used to it. I feel like I've been bouncing around for, you know, I've gotten really good at being pretty organized with all of it, and it actually became a lot easier when I became a head coach than it was before.
Yeah, I mean, I have brought my kids to practices before too, and I think no matter who you're coaching, when you're showing that you can kind of balance those two things and make them work, that is kind of it's a good way to role model too to your players that you know, you can do something that you enjoy, and you can have a family and still be a good parent. And I think it allows them maybe to get to know their coach as a little bit more a whole person. I mean, I know as a college athlete, it's maybe a little bit different. They're a little bit more knowledgeable, but, you know, certainly with younger athletes, sometimes you think of just your coach as like, oh, this coach is, you know, played professionally. You know, that's all they do is volleyball, or that's all they do is teach, or, you know, and when they can see a little bit more into your life, that can be pretty impactful. And I'm sure some of those girls that you're coaching kind of enjoy being able to see that side of it.
Yeah, I think they, you know, they really, I mean, they love Scout, and I don't know if it's just because she's just the cutest thing in the world, but you know, a lot of them have known Scout since she was just first started walking. Because I think when we first got here, she was barely 1 and she was just starting to walk. And so they've got a chance to kind of see her grow and then see me grow as a mother as well. And they've seen me go through struggles with parenting, which, you know, makes me human. And like you said, I think that seeing, you know, that human side of coaches and that compassionate side and that family side is important, because I think for our student athletes, it's something that they see and they go, okay, I know my coach cares about me. You know, they really, like, if they're willing to share this side of them with the team, you know, and their flaws and on all of that, then it kind of makes it for our student athletes, it makes them feel like it's okay not to be perfect. Like it's okay to, you know, fall, and I've seen my coach get back up, I can do it too. Like there's so many things you know, going all the way back, and like I mentioned, back to UCLA with Andy, that was really important to me in my career and as I grew as an adult and you know, a mother and a wife and a coach. So it's good.
Yeah, you know, one thing I wanted to ask you, Coach, is and there's no right or wrong. There's all different kinds of philosophies, and it's kind of an open-ended question. You might say, well, we train this way during this time of the year, and during this time of the year we practice this way. But what does a Coach Allie practice look like? Is it the ball's the best teacher and they're just getting a lot of quality reps and touches? Is it you're really teaching technique? Are you watching a lot of film? How do you break down a practice? And you can also say this is what we do in the fall, this is what we do in the spring.
Yeah. So I like to break down the different seasons. Like we have, you know, our off season, we come in and we have all that time to work together to condition and to get strong and to get prepared to do all those drills that are going to take a lot more energy. You're going to have to be able to, you know, jump a lot. So it's really important for me that when the girls first come in the fall, that we try and, you know, develop those basic fundamentals and make sure they're strong enough and in good enough shape to handle all of the practice stuff. So we start with a slow integration into the training as a team to condition ourselves. And as we do that, we also, the drills start to get harder and harder as we start getting more physically fit to do higher level drills throughout the fall. And then by the end of the fall, we're like full speed going. And so we do practice for us in the fall. Typically is a week would look like we have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday practice. I usually give them a Thursday off in the middle of the week because academics are tough, and a lot of them typically have stuff on like finals or midterms on Fridays or stuff due at the end of the week. So I try and give them a break for academics during the middle of the week. And Thursday always seems to be a good spot. And then Friday, Saturday, we do competition days. And I like to simulate like duels on Fridays and Saturdays because that's typically what we would do on a weekend. Practices are usually anywhere from 3 hours to 2 hours. Saturdays might be a 4-hour practice, but it's because we're playing. So you're not playing the whole time. You're just kind of like trying to play and then figure out how to manage your body through the day. And then we have yoga twice a week during that because they're doing strength and conditioning 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. If the schedule with our strength and conditioning permits that, sometimes it might be like a Monday. Like right now we had to do Monday, Wednesday, Saturday because of COVID regulations and that we can't have that many people in the gym. So we've got everything outside right now. And between all the 25 sports, having to limit the access to equipment and that sort of thing, it made our schedule a little bit wonky. But usually it's like Monday, Wednesday, Friday weights, strength and conditioning for about an hour. And that's kind of like what a typical week would look like, with conditioning too, twice a week during those days. Conditioning is always fun because we try and integrate it into practice a lot of times into our drills, or we'll do a drill and then we'll do conditioning. So it's not just like straight up conditioning and like, oh, when is this going to end type of thing. That always killed me. And when I played, I always hated conditioning. Like I would rather like play my conditioning out, but obviously that's too taxing on your body. You don't want to condition by playing. So we try and integrate it in between drills. And then when we get into our like January, when we get into kind of preseason, I want to say we do similar schedule. Assuming that everyone comes back in the same shape that they left, which is a really big deal for us because I always tell the girls, I'm like, look, I will give you Thanksgiving and Christmas off so they can have their holiday break all the way to, January, like 4th, around when we come back, as long as you guys come back in the same shape that you left. So that's like the deal we have with the team. As long as they always do that, I will always give them those holidays. The one year that they don't, then the following year, we're going to go a little bit longer. I'll make them come back after Thanksgiving, and then we'll have about like a 2.5 weeks of practice before we go on a break and then come back in January. Because it's important that they stay in shape going in. They worked so hard to go into January, and we're about to start our season mid-February, that they're in shape so we can like get to the good stuff in the training. So we go all the way up into like kind of the same training schedule, but a little bit different as far as where they are in their strength and conditioning. And we go into more of a competition strategy phase instead of all the technical work we do in the fall. We go more into pairs training in January, and we try and lock in our pairs by February. And then once we hit February and we hit competition, our Saturday practices go to Thursday. And then our Fridays become a little bit more like an hour prior to prior to going to competition, if not playing on Fridays. And then we have kind of a recovery in May, typically, like right after season ends. We do some, a lot of like yoga, a lot of kind of assessing our bodies, seeing how we feel. And throughout all of those segments, we really focus on nutrition and making sure that our bodies, like, what do we feel like during this time frame? How was practice today? We really try and assess each day to for me to be able to just practice and see, you know, how are the girls handling, are they stressed out? Are they not getting enough sleep? What, you know, what's their school regiment like right now? And I try and really be mindful of that because, again, knowing how hard it is to manage that as a student athlete, I like to be able to be flexible with them, probably more than I should. And they know that. I'm a little bit more flexible than I should be as far as scheduling goes, so that it makes it easier on them to be able to train and come out and, you know, give their best effort.
You know, when you said you give them all of Thanksgiving off and Christmas, I think that's great because I think that's an important time for people to be able to be with family and have a break. But I can just picture some people that I know I've coached with before going like, how in the world could you give them that time off when you know they're gonna have to come back and compete? And how can you have the trust in them to stay in shape? So obviously you're giving them a good base throughout that fall time. It sounds like you're giving them a lot of tools to be able to leave and continue to keep themselves in good shape. Besides giving them those tools, how are you building the trust with them so that you know and they know that when they come back, they better be ready to hit the ground running?
I think you know, we do a good job of kind of making it very, very clear as far as like, if you come back and you're not in the shape that you left off, and we all do, you know, testing when we leave. We do our sprints, and if their sprint times are way lower, or, you know, if they do their testing in the weight room and they're not able to do the same stuff they were before, then the punishment really is just they go down to the bottom court and they don't get back up until they're in condition, which takes, as we all know, it's a lot harder to get in shape than it is to, you know, lose it. So which kind of puts them in a situation where they might not start and play in February, the end of February. And it doesn't matter to me if they're the best player on my team normally. If they're my ones player and they could probably step in and play at a very high level still, even being out of shape, it has to be a precedent that no one is above anyone else on the team. Whether you're a freshman or a senior, you've got to do your part. And I think that those are the expectations. They know what they are. And I don't think anybody ever wants to come in January in that position where they're being put on the bottom court, because and in the bottom court is really like, okay, you're going back to the baby steps, right? Like, you can't do the drills that we're doing in January because you're not in shape to do them. And the bottom line is, I don't want you to get injured. Like, that's like one of the main reasons why I don't want them to step in and do the drills that we do in January if they're not in shape for it, because they'll get injured.
Yeah, you know, Coach Ali, on my end, Coach Miles might have more for you. That's all I got for you. But one thing that I really admire about you is, you know, I met you in about 2006, and for about 4 straight summers, we got to run camps under Coach Kim Jade and Coach Andy Benikowski. And, you know, it's just fascinating to hear you. It's kind of full circle, because I do remember I was like, you know, that's high level All-American athlete. She's doing this, this, and this. And it's kind of fun now that you know, are partnered up with, you know, Coach Connors, who got you on board there. He's the women's indoor coach. And a lot of the things you're preaching and a lot of the things you're saying, I remember that you did that at UCLA, and it's pretty fun to see. And I think any UC Davis kid would be lucky to play for you, or any, you know, maybe kids that are watching this and want to play beach volleyball. I think you should definitely give UC Davis a look. It's a good coach, and, you know, they got picnic day up there, so that's a good time. And but I don't know, I'm very.
We play on picnic day, by the way.
Pardon me?
We play on picnic day.
Oh, that's a bummer. Well, and it is what it is. But anyways, I just, it's really encouraging to see what you're doing, Coach. And maybe Miles has a few more questions, but congrats and keep up the good work.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I have too many more questions. Yeah, I mean, I would say I'm proud of you. I've seen you play since you were in middle school. And again, the one thing that always stood out to me that I think, you know, I know you're passing on to your players, and you know, I hope, like Kevin said, people give you a look, is that you've always been a hard worker, and you're going to do what you can to make your team better. Because I can definitely remember times where you were definitely the best player by far, but it never came across that you were above anybody else. You were going to be a team player and help those other athletes around you and lift them up. So I'm sure you're doing that as a coach as well. One thing we just kind of let everybody do is just kind of if you have any final thoughts, any words of encouragement to people out there listening, whatever your final thoughts might be, this would just be a great time to put it out there.
Yeah, no, I thank you guys both for having me on, but I think that, for all the athletes out there, coaches out there, to just, always remember that the student athlete comes first, and that it's our jobs to, help grow them as athletes, but also as people, and to be mindful of that. And I feel like for student athletes, when you guys are choosing schools, to just make sure that you guys do the research, and there's a school out there for you. And if you get a chance to look at UC Davis, we're amazing. Academically, we're incredible, and our beach program is growing. So I think that just really, really take your time. Don't be pressured into stuff, and really do what you're passionate about and what's right for you.
Awesome. All right. Well, a lot of great advice tonight from Coach Allie from UC Davis. Again, go Aggies, go give them a look, and hopefully we'll be able to have them back playing again soon. Hopefully we'll have something we're all looking forward to being able to be back watching some college volleyball and seeing people compete. So thank you so much for being on with us tonight and giving us your time. We know it's late. We know it's tough with the little ones, but thank you to your husband too for giving you the time to be on with us, and we look forward to seeing great things from you.
Awesome. Thank you guys.
Please follow us on Instagram at Valuable Coaching. Subscribe on YouTube and Rumble. Follow us on Facebook, and you can listen and subscribe on Spotify, Anchor, and Google Podcasts.